Long before you speak your name, before you explain your story, before you ask for a seat at the table, something quieter is already talking for you. It is the way you walk into a room, the way you hold your shoulders, the way you pause instead of rushing to be accepted. Confidence is not announced, it is felt, and people feel it before they understand it. When you believe in your own worth, you give others instructions without saying a word. You teach them where to stand, how to listen, and how gently or how firmly they must handle your presence. Tonight, we are not talking about arrogance or noise. We are talking about that calm, unshakable knowing that changes the way the world looks at you and the way it dares to treat you. Confidence is the language you speak before you say a word, and the world is fluent in it. People listen to how you enter a space long before they hear what you have to say. They notice whether you apologize for existing or arrive as if you belong. Confidence does not demand attention, yet it commands it. It is carried in your posture, your patience, the way you meet a gaze without flinching. When you trust yourself, you give others permission or denial to decide how close they may come and how lightly or heavily they may step around your life. When confidence lives inside you, people sense boundaries even when none are spoken. They hesitate before interrupting you. They listen more carefully. They choose their words with greater respect, not because you threaten them, but because confidence teaches without teaching. It says, I know who I am, and that quiet certainty becomes a mirror. People rise to it or reveal themselves against it. You begin to notice how differently conversations unfold, how your voice is no longer drowned out, how your silence suddenly holds weight. Without confidence, the world tests you. It pushes, interrupts, and overlooks, not out of cruelty alone, but because uncertainty invites intrusion. When you doubt yourself, others feel free to doubt you too. But the moment you stop shrinking, the moment you stop explaining your worth, something shifts. People adjust their tone. They rethink their assumptions. They recognize that you are not asking for approval. You are standing in your truth. Confidence does not make you louder. It makes you clearer. You speak with fewer words and more meaning. You stop chasing validation and start attracting respect. People learn that they cannot rush you, use you, or dismiss you so easily. And even those who choose not to honor you lose the power to define you. Confidence becomes a shield, not hard, but steady, protecting your spirit without closing your heart. The most powerful change happens within. When you walk with confidence, rejection hurts less because it no longer feels like a verdict on your worth. Criticism loses its sting because you know who you are beyond opinion. You stop performing for acceptance and start living from alignment. And in that alignment, the world has no choice but to respond differently. Some will admire you, some will resist you, but none will ignore you. Confidence does not promise ease, but it promises dignity. It reminds you that you deserve to be seen, heard, and treated with care. When you stand rooted in self-belief, you rewrite the rules of every room you enter. You teach the world gently and firmly how to meet you. And in doing so, you discover a truth that cannot be taken away. The way people treat you begins with how deeply you believe in yourself. The world responds to the energy you carry, not the excuses you explain. You can rehearse your reasons 1,000 times, polish your justifications, soften your truth so it will be easier to swallow, but none of that reaches people the way your inner posture does. Long before explanations arrive, energy speaks. It announces whether you trust yourself or are waiting to be convinced. And people, knowingly or not, respond to that signal with remarkable accuracy. When you walk through life carrying doubt, the world leans into that space. It questions you, rushes you, overlooks you, not because you deserve it, but because uncertainty invites negotiation. Every excuse you offer becomes an opening for someone else to decide your limits. You may think you are being polite, humble, or understanding, but what the world often hears is hesitation. And hesitation teaches others that your boundaries are flexible, that your worth can be debated. Confidence changes this conversation without saying a word. When you stop explaining yourself, people start paying attention. When you move with quiet assurance, the need for excuses disappears. You no longer feel compelled to justify your dreams, your pace, your no. Confidence does not harden you, it centers you. It shifts your energy from pleading to presence, from defense to dignity. There is a difference between explaining and expressing. Explaining asks for permission. Expressing stands in truth. The world responds to expression because it carries clarity. When you express who you are without apology, people sense that you are not available for disrespect. They may not always agree with you, but they will think twice before dismissing you. Confidence teaches others that your time matters, your voice counts, and your space is not empty. You will notice it in small moments: fewer interruptions, more eye contact, a pause before someone speaks over you. These are not accidents, they are responses to energy. When you believe in yourself, you stop scattering your power through endless explanations. You become grounded, and grounded people change rooms simply by standing still. Confidence also frees you from the exhausting need to be understood by everyone. You realize that clarity within yourself is more important than approval outside yourself. The world may misunderstand you, but it will still feel your certainty. And certainty has weight. It does not chase. It attracts. It does not argue. It arrives. This does not mean the world will always be kind. Confidence does not guarantee gentleness from others, but it guarantees self-respect within you. When criticism comes, it no longer shakes your foundation. When rejection appears, it does not rewrite your identity. You carry yourself with a steadiness that says, "I know who I am, even if you do not." In the end, the world takes its cues from you. It listens to your energy more than your words. When you carry confidence, you teach people how to approach you, how to speak to you, how to value you. You stop offering excuses for your existence and start offering your presence. And presence, rooted in self-belief, is something the world cannot ignore. The world responds to the energy you carry, not the excuses you explain. You can rehearse your reasons 1,000 times, polish your justifications, soften your truth, so it will be easier to swallow, but none of that reaches people the way your inner posture does. Long before explanations arrive, energy speaks. It announces whether you trust yourself or are waiting to be convinced. And people, knowingly or not, respond to that signal with remarkable accuracy. When you walk through life carrying doubt, the world leans into that space. It questions you, rushes you, overlooks you, not because you deserve it, but because uncertainty invites negotiation. Every excuse you offer becomes an opening for someone else to decide your limits. You may think you are being polite, humble, or understanding, but what the world often hears is hesitation. And hesitation teaches others that your boundaries are flexible, that your worth can be debated. Confidence changes this conversation without saying a word. When you stop explaining yourself, people start paying attention. When you move with quiet assurance, the need for excuses disappears. You no longer feel compelled to justify your dreams, your pace, your no. Confidence does not harden you, it centers you. It shifts your energy from pleading to presence, from defense to dignity. There is a difference between explaining and expressing. Explaining asks for permission. Expressing stands in truth. The world responds to expression because it carries clarity. When you express who you are without apology, people sense that you are not available for disrespect. They may not always agree with you, but they will think twice before dismissing you. Confidence teaches others that your time matters, your voice counts, and your space is not empty. You will notice it in small moments: fewer interruptions, more eye contact, a pause before someone speaks over you. These are not accidents, they are responses to energy. When you believe in yourself, You stop scattering your power through endless explanations. You become grounded, and grounded people change rooms simply by standing still. Confidence also frees you from the exhausting need to be understood by everyone. You realize that clarity within yourself is more important than approval outside yourself. The world may misunderstand you, but it will still feel your certainty. And certainty has weight. It does not chase, it attracts. It does not argue, it arrives. This does not mean the world will always be kind. Confidence does not guarantee gentleness from others, but it guarantees self-respect within you. When criticism comes, it no longer shakes your foundation. When rejection appears, it does not rewrite your identity. You carry yourself with a steadiness that says, I know who I am, even if you do not. In the end, the world takes its cues from you. It listens to your energy more than your words. When you carry confidence, you teach people how to approach you, how to speak to you, how to value you. You stop offering excuses for your existence and start offering your presence. And presence, rooted in self-belief, is something the world cannot ignore. Confidence teaches people how to respect you in ways no lecture ever could. Respect is not something you demand, it is something you demonstrate through how you honor yourself. The world watches closely how you respond to being ignored, interrupted, or underestimated. Each response becomes a lesson. When you accept less than you deserve, people learn that less is enough. When you stand rooted in self-belief, people learn to rise to your level. Respect begins in the quiet moments when no one is applauding you. It shows up in whether you speak your truth even when your voice trembles, or whether you swallow it to keep others comfortable. Confidence teaches respect because it removes desperation from your spirit. You are no longer begging to be seen, you are simply present, and presence, when grounded in self-worth, has a gravity that draws attention without force. People often mistake politeness for permission. They assume kindness means compliance, but confidence reshapes that misunderstanding. It allows you to be courteous without being controllable, warm without being weak. When you say yes, it is intentional. When you say no, it is final. Over time, people stop pushing, not because you fight back, but because they learn you will not move. Respect grows when your words and actions align. Confidence closes the gap between what you feel and what you tolerate. You stop laughing at disrespect disguised as jokes. You stop staying silent when something feels wrong. And in doing so, you teach others that access to you comes with responsibility. Not everyone deserves the same closeness, the same trust, the same emotional labor. Confidence makes that distinction clear. Some people will resist this shift. They may accuse you of changing, of becoming distant, of being difficult. But what they are really noticing is that you are no longer easy to disregard. Confidence has a way of exposing dynamics that thrived on your self-doubt. And that discomfort is not your burden to carry. Growth often unsettles those who benefited from your silence. As respect from others increases, something deeper happens within you. You begin to respect yourself more fully. You trust your instincts. You stop questioning your right to take up space. This inner respect strengthens your confidence even further, creating a cycle that reinforces itself. The more you honor yourself, the more the world reflects that honor back to you. Confidence does not guarantee that everyone will treat you well, but it ensures that mistreatment no longer defines you. You recognize disrespect faster and you walk away sooner. You no longer linger where you are unseen. And that choice, again and again, teaches the world that your presence is not free, your energy is not disposable, and your worth is not negotiable. In the end, confidence becomes a quiet teacher. It instructs without speeches, corrects without conflict, and commands respect without cruelty. Through the way you stand, speak, and stay true to yourself, people learn how to treat you. And the most important lesson is this: when you respect yourself deeply, The world has no choice but to take notes. Your self-belief sets the terms of every interaction long before a single word is spoken. When you know your value, every conversation, every handshake, every glance carries the weight of that certainty. You no longer bend to fit others' expectations or shrink to make someone else comfortable. Instead, you step into the space you were meant to occupy, and in doing so, you teach the world how to meet you. People begin to notice the boundaries you quietly enforce and the standards you refuse to compromise. Self-belief acts like an invisible contract between you and the world. It tells others what is acceptable and what is not without the need for explanation. You start conversations with integrity, and the world mirrors that integrity back to you. You become less reactive to judgment or criticism because your own approval has more weight than the opinions of those who try to define you. Interactions no longer feel like tests you must pass. They become opportunities to demonstrate your worth and to attract those who respect it. When your self-belief is strong, you stop tolerating manipulation or unnecessary drama. You no longer allow your energy to be drained by people who thrive on insecurity. Instead, your calm certainty invites others to behave with the same respect you show yourself. They mirror your confidence and learn that you cannot be coerced, rushed, or diminished. In every interaction, the terms are set before words are exchanged. You are present, grounded, and unwavering. This does not mean that every encounter will be easy. Some will push against your certainty, testing your limits, questioning your choices. Yet self-belief transforms these challenges into opportunities to reinforce your value. The way you respond, firm but composed, assertive but not aggressive, teaches more than confrontation ever could. People learn that your worth is not negotiable, that your time is not disposable, and that your spirit cannot be moved by doubt or fear. Your presence alone communicates the rules. Self-belief also changes how others approach collaboration, negotiation, and conversation with you. They begin to respect your ideas, listen attentively, and treat your contributions as meaningful. No longer are you overlooked or underestimated. Your confidence signals that you are someone who cannot be ignored, and slowly, the world adjusts its behavior. Interactions become less about persuasion and more about mutual recognition and respect. The beauty of self-belief is that it radiates quietly but powerfully. You do not have to assert dominance or demand respect. It is visible in the way you hold yourself, the steadiness of your voice, the clarity of your choices, and in that clarity, people learn to meet you where you stand. You no longer adapt to others' expectations. Instead, they learn to adapt to yours. This is the silent, transformative power of knowing your worth. Every interaction becomes a reflection of your inner certainty, and the world has no choice but to honor it. The moment you believe you matter, the world listens, not because you demand attention, not because you shout louder than anyone else, but because something inside you has shifted, and that shift resonates outward. When you truly recognize your own worth, a quiet authority settles into your presence. People sense it before they can name it. Your confidence becomes a signal that cannot be ignored. It says, without words, that you are here and you deserve to be seen, heard, and treated with care. Believing in your own value changes the way you carry yourself. You no longer apologize for existing, no longer shrink to make others comfortable. Every step you take, every glance you offer, communicates that your life is important, that your ideas matter, that your dreams are valid. And as your energy shifts, the people around you adjust their behavior. They start listening differently, responding more thoughtfully, and treating your presence with a consideration they once reserved for someone else. When you embrace your worth, you stop settling for less than you deserve. You refuse to linger in spaces where your voice is silenced or your contribution ignored. You stop justifying your choices to people who never needed to approve them in the first place. That refusal is not arrogance, it is clarity. And clarity is magnetic. It draws respect, invites opportunity, and signals to the world that your life has value, not because anyone told you so, but because you know it yourself. Believing you matter also transforms how you respond to criticism and rejection. When you are rooted in self-worth, judgment becomes less damaging and disagreement loses its sting. You no longer bend or contort to fit the expectations of others. Instead, you respond with grace and composure, maintaining your dignity even when challenged. People notice this steadiness. They learn that your spirit is anchored and that your confidence is not fragile. In turn, they treat you with a level of respect that mirrors the respect you hold for yourself. This belief also changes the way you engage with opportunities and challenges. You approach life with intention rather than fear. You speak up when ideas need to be shared, take risks when growth requires it, and assert boundaries that protect your peace. When you act from a place of self-recognition, others can feel it. They are drawn to your energy, inspired by your certainty, and influenced by the knowledge that you honor your own life. Ultimately, when you truly believe you matter, you set the tone for every interaction and every relationship. You teach the world that respect is not a gift to be earned through servitude or compliance. It is a reflection of your self-awareness and confidence. And in that teaching, you find freedom, freedom to live authentically, to claim your space unapologetically, and to allow the world to respond to you as the remarkable, worthy human being you are. When you believe you matter, everything around you begins to listen, and everything within you begins to rise. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but when carried with confidence, it becomes a force more powerful than words. Confidence turns silence into presence, and presence into power. When you are rooted in self-assurance, you do not need to fill every space with sound or explanation. Your quiet becomes deliberate, your pauses meaningful, and your stillness commanding. People notice it before they understand it. They feel the weight of your certainty, the gravity of your inner strength, and the unspoken declaration that you are enough just as you are. Presence begins with being fully aware of yourself in every moment. It is not about demanding attention or asserting dominance. It is about occupying your space without apology. Confidence allows you to do this naturally. When you enter a room, sit at a table, or engage in conversation, the energy you bring speaks louder than any words you could utter. People sense it and they adjust. They lean in, listen more carefully, and approach with a level of respect that mirrors the quiet power you radiate. Silence paired with confidence also teaches others restraint. It signals that your attention, your time, and your energy are not to be taken lightly. When you speak, it carries weight because it is intentional, not reactive. When you remain silent, it commands notice because it reflects a control over yourself that others cannot impose. Confidence transforms absence of words into presence of authority, and the world begins to treat you according to the power you hold within. There is a subtle shift that occurs when you embrace this power. People start to value your input more. They notice when you are not participating because your silence makes them aware of your presence in a way constant chatter never could. Your calm authority becomes a benchmark. Others adjust their behavior to match the standard you set simply by existing fully and confidently. They learn to approach you thoughtfully, speak with care, and honor the space you occupy. Confidence in silence also nurtures patience and observation. It allows you to understand situations and people more deeply before responding. You are no longer hurried by the need to prove yourself or to be liked. Instead, your measured presence becomes a magnet, drawing the right opportunities and the right people toward you. Your silence becomes a filter, a way of letting only what aligns with your values and self-respect enter your life. Power comes not from volume, but from consistency, clarity, and control. Confidence ensures that your words matter, your actions resonate, and your boundaries are respected. When you combine that with the mastery of silence, you become untouchable by trivial judgments and unshaken by fleeting criticism. People respond to you differently because they feel that you are unshakable, grounded, and intentional. Ultimately, turning silence into presence and presence into power is a practice of honoring yourself. It is a reminder that your life, your space, and your energy have intrinsic value. When you carry yourself this way, the world responds accordingly. People notice, respect, and treat you in a manner that reflects the quiet, unwavering confidence you embody. Through this transformation, you discover that true power is not in speaking loudly, but in existing fully, confidently, and without apology. When you refuse to shrink, the world takes notice in ways both subtle and profound. Refusing to diminish yourself is not an act of defiance, it is an act of self-respect. It begins with the simple decision to stand fully in your own life, to claim the space you deserve, and to refuse to apologize for your existence. When you stop bending to the comfort of others, when you stop dimming your light so that someone else can shine, you send a quiet, undeniable message: I will not be small, and the world responds accordingly. Refusing to shrink changes the dynamics of every relationship and interaction. People begin to treat you with a new level of respect because they sense your boundaries are firm and your worth is non-negotiable. They can no longer take liberties with your time, your ideas, or your energy. Your presence demands consideration, not because you demand it, but because you refuse to cede it. In this refusal, you teach others the unspoken rules of engagement, that your spirit is not to be overlooked and your value is not to be questioned. When you refuse to shrink, confidence radiates through every movement, every word, and every glance. You no longer hesitate in meetings, conversations, or gatherings. You no longer apologize for speaking your mind or for taking up space. Even your silence becomes a form of authority, as people sense that your presence alone carries weight. They adjust their behavior, consciously or unconsciously, to meet the standard you have set simply by being unapologetically yourself. This refusal also transforms how you navigate challenges and criticism. When you stand tall in your worth, you no longer internalize every slight, nor do you shrink in the face of judgment. People notice this strength. They see that attempts to manipulate, undermine, or belittle you are futile because you have already anchored yourself in your own value. Your refusal to shrink becomes a shield, protecting you from disrespect and guiding others toward honoring your space. Refusing to shrink is not about arrogance or seeking dominance. It is about clarity and alignment. It is about understanding that your dreams, your voice, and your presence matter, and you have the right to inhabit them fully. As you embrace this mindset, opportunities begin to flow differently. People listen to your ideas more attentively. They wait for your input. They recognize your contributions and treat them with the seriousness they deserve. In essence, your refusal to shrink elevates how the world interacts with you, not through force, but through recognition. The most profound effect of refusing to shrink is internal. As you stop compressing yourself for the comfort of others, your self-respect grows, your confidence strengthens, and your sense of freedom expands. You realize that life does not ask for your diminishment, it asks for your full presence. And when you consistently show up fully without apology, the world cannot help but respond differently. People treat you differently because you have made it unmistakably clear. You will no longer take up less than your life demands. You have chosen to rise, and the world adjusts to meet you there. Confidence is not loudness, it is certainty. It does not demand attention through volume or spectacle. It does not need to dominate conversations or outshine others to be recognized. True confidence is quiet, steady, and unwavering. It is the internal knowledge that you are enough, that your ideas have value, and that your presence matters. When certainty lives inside you, the world feels it immediately, even before you speak. People are drawn to it, they respond to it, and they treat you differently because your inner assurance communicates something that noise cannot, that you are grounded in your worth. Certainty allows you to move through life without hesitation. When you are certain of yourself, you do not second guess every decision, apologize for taking up space, or seek constant validation. Your energy carries a clarity that people cannot ignore. They notice when you are sure, and they instinctively treat you with respect and consideration. Confidence is reflected in your posture, in the way you hold your gaze, in the calm of your voice. It is not about speaking louder, but about speaking with intention and truth, and letting your presence do the rest. When confidence is rooted in certainty, it transforms interactions. People no longer feel free to interrupt, undermine, or dismiss you. They sense that you know your value and will not settle for less. This kind of assurance teaches boundaries without confrontation. You do not have to assert yourself aggressively. Your certainty commands attention naturally. Conversations shift, respect increases, and the way people engage with you evolves because they understand intuitively that you are not swayed by insecurity or doubt. Certainty also shields you from the influence of judgment and criticism. When you are confident, external opinions lose the power to define your worth. You no longer adjust your actions to please others or shrink in response to their discomfort. People treat you differently, not because you insist on it, but because your consistency and self-awareness leave no room for underestimation. You become someone whose voice matters, whose presence is significant, and whose boundaries are recognized without question. The quiet power of certainty allows you to act decisively. You take risks when necessary, speak up when it matters, and move through life with purpose. You are no longer paralyzed by fear of judgment or rejection because you are anchored in an unshakable understanding of your own value. This steadiness attracts respect and fosters trust. People sense reliability, strength, and integrity, and they respond accordingly. They listen more carefully, treat your contribution seriously, and approach you with thoughtfulness rather than assumption. Ultimately, confidence as certainty is not about volume, appearance, or the approval of others. It is about internal alignment with who you are and what you know to be true about yourself. When you embody this certainty, the world cannot help but take notice. Your actions, your presence, and your choices speak volumes. People begin to treat you with the respect, consideration, and recognition that mirrors your inner conviction. This is the essence of true confidence: quiet, unwavering, and absolute certainty in yourself. When you know your worth, the world adjusts its behavior. This is not an exaggeration or a magical idea. It is a quiet, undeniable truth. The moment you fully understand and embrace your value, your energy shifts, and that shift is contagious. People sense it in the way you carry yourself, in the way you hold your gaze, in the way you speak and act. They can feel it even if you never say a word. When you refuse to negotiate your value, when you stop asking for permission to exist fully, the world begins to respond to the authority of your self-respect. Knowing your worth changes the dynamics of every relationship you have. People begin to treat you differently because they recognize that you will no longer accept disrespect, indifference, or manipulation. Your boundaries become evident not through confrontation, but through consistency and self-assurance. Those who once overlooked you start paying attention. Those who tried to push you into spaces where you did not belong begin to reconsider their approach. The way you value yourself becomes a standard by which others measure their behavior toward you. This understanding also transforms your own behavior. When you know your worth, you no longer tolerate situations that diminish you. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop bending to fit expectations that do not align with your truth. Every decision, every interaction, every word spoken is filtered through the lens of self-respect. You become more intentional about how you spend your time, who you give your energy to, and what you allow into your life. And in that intention, others cannot help but adjust their behavior. They recognize the seriousness of your self-respect and act accordingly. The power of knowing your worth lies not in arrogance or defiance, but in clarity and confidence. You no longer seek external validation to confirm your value. You know it internally, and that knowledge radiates outward. People notice it in subtle ways: the pauses before they speak, the carefulness in their tone, the deference they show when they once might have dismissed you. Your presence demands acknowledgement, not because you demand it, but because you embody it so completely. Your life becomes a mirror that reflects the seriousness of your self-belief back to the world. This self-awareness also empowers you to act with integrity and purpose. You engage with others from a position of strength rather than neediness. You negotiate, collaborate, and communicate from a place of certainty, and people respond in kind. Your worth is no longer negotiable, and the world begins to adjust its expectations accordingly. What once may have been dismissed or ignored is now recognized and valued. Your life, your time, your contributions are treated with the respect they deserve because you first treated them with respect yourself. Ultimately, knowing your worth is a transformative force. It shapes how you see yourself, how you interact with the world, and how the world interacts with you. People may still challenge you, test you, or resist your confidence, but their behavior is no longer arbitrary. It is influenced by the steadfast knowledge that you carry within yourself. When you honor your own value, the world responds. It cannot help but adjust, because the truth of your worth is undeniable, and it commands recognition in every corner of life.